Good morning, everyone. Just trying to get set up here with some technology things. Let's see if I can get this going here. There we go. Good morning, good morning. It is Coffee Chats with Coach Candy. It is Monday Mindset. Welcome. Good morning, Michelle. Good to see you. How was your weekend? I am actually coming to all of you live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. As you may remember, I am up here doing a couple Cubs games. Good morning, Elaine. Happy Monday, y'all. How is everyone doing? How was the weekend? It's nice to see you, ladies. As you know, this is Monday Mindset. We're going to get into some good, juicy discussion here in just a minute. I will let everybody else, good morning, I will let everybody else jump on. But how's everybody doing? How's everybody doing with their challenge from last week? I had a pretty meaty Thursday throwdown. So how are you doing with your gratitude for yourself? Good morning, Martha. How are you doing with great, this is my last Monday. Oh, we'll miss you, Michelle. Well, they will be recorded so you can go back and at least see our conversations, and best wishes on the new job, or going back to work. So we will have these posted so you can come back and join us, even if it's not live. But we will miss you on Mondays. For sure. Good morning, Martha. So how's everybody doing with their challenge? How's everybody doing with the two-part Thursday throwdown that I gave you? The one, having gratitude in any spaces that you're feeling shame, and your gratitude for other people, the notes, the handwritten notes that you were sending out. I know some of you bought your cards and were out there. So did anyone have any big, awesome things to share from the weekend? And today I just have water. I don't have my coffee because I haven't quite made it to Starbucks yet this morning. Yes, congratulations, Michelle. So as I start getting rolling, I would love to, as I start to get rolling, man, I can't speak this morning, too much baseball. I would love to hear how you guys are doing with some of the stuff from last week. I know I introduced the 5 a.m. club from Robin Sharma on Friday. And good morning, Deborah. And really want to hear how the Thursday throwdown is going for all of you, how you guys are doing in the space of gratitude. But this morning, I want to get into a quick discussion around upper limits and the stories that you're holding onto that could be limiting you from really stepping out and living bigger. Well, I hope you're recovering well, Michelle. I hope it wasn't anything too serious, and sending you more blessings and good energy for fast healing. We have really enjoyed having you here, and I'm going to miss you, but glad you are doing better and back on track. That's awesome. But let's talk a little bit. One of the other books or resources I want to introduce to you a little bit more in detail later, but I want to kind of give you a little taste of it right now, is The Big Leap from Gay Hendricks. Another one of my top 5 books, actually. And what I like about that book is it gets into a discussion around upper limits. And so when I talk about upper limits, it's those areas where we are unconsciously sabotaging ourselves and don't even know it, based on either the stories that we tell ourselves or this perceived notion of how much we're allowed to have. Good morning, Terry. So I want you to think about upper limits for a minute, and I want you to think about where you might be inadvertently self-sabotaging yourself, going after some of the things that you say are important to you. And it might be things such as physical limitations that show up. It might be things such as injuries or illnesses that show up just right at that critical point where you're about to break through to the next level. Or good morning, Roberto. Oh my God, Hanchi, I haven't talked to you in forever. It's wonderful to see you on here. Good morning. Yes, go Cubs today. I know you can say that, Terry. We're done with getting, not showing up so well this weekend, but thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yes, we will be heading to Chicago later on, or actually after this call this morning, to go to the home opener. So thank you, appreciate that. But let's talk about upper limits. So again, as I'm kind of getting into the discussion for this morning, want to hear how last week is going, especially the throwdown, the gratitude piece. So I want to know how you're doing with that for both yourself and for others, as you had a 2-part kind of challenge or assignment. One was really really identifying and having gratitude in that space of shame for yourself, and then being able to really give that gratitude out in the form of a handwritten note to individuals in your life. So I would love to hear that. I'd love to hear if you've had some great experiences this weekend, if things are going well, if you're struggling with anything, let me know, because it does play into some of the conversation this morning, which is all around, again, the upper limits. And so it's things where we say, even if it's subconsciously and we don't know that we actually are putting this into our mindset, it's things like, I can only be this happy. I can only be, see, there you go. Thank you, Martha. Lack of confidence, right? And so you may have a upper limit that says something like, I can only have this much. I only deserve X. I only can be this successful. I can only be this loved. And what we do is we put these, good morning, Robin. We put these unconscious and very biased upper limits, especially when we're having that moment where we're about to break through, where we're going to go to our next level, where we're leveling up, where we're in a space to say, I want to go here. We do things that are self-sabotaging because we have these stories, we have these beliefs that we're carrying around that dictate how we feel about ourselves, our own self-worth, how much we think we deserve to be loved, how happy we think we deserve to be, how successful we deserve to be. And what we do is we play this game that says, okay, well, I'm hitting that limit, so I better do something. And it could be something such as the excuses that we make. It could be something such as procrastination. Maybe it's something such as a physical injury that shows up. I know for me, one of the big ahas when I was looking at Gay Hendricks' work in The Big Leap was the chapter that talked about physical injuries and things that manifest in your body when those upper limits show up. And I think about the 5 surgeries I've had in my life, and 4 of them definitely showed up at critical points where I was breaking through to that next level of excellence, or breaking through to my next whatever it was. And so that has been a default for me. And I love this, Elaine, having conversation with my sister about feelings. So how's that going? Where's that? What's showing up for you there, Elaine? Terry, I've been doing mirror affirmations. Yes, I love hearing that. Powerful. I have been practicing intentional verbal gratitude this weekend and get to write several notes after our call today. I love that. Martha, gratitude is difficult for the negative, even knowing that will be used for my good later. Yes, gratitude in the negative is especially important. If you really want to shift out of that space that's feeling heavy, anchoring, that's starting to trigger those what ifs, that's the, what if I suck? What if they don't like me? What if I fail? Or any of the other, what ifs that kind of percolate and kind of perpetuate from that. Moving into a place of deep gratitude can be absolutely the most powerful thing you can do. Dropping into gratitude is going to be the thing that shifts you out of that negative mindset, those beliefs. Robin, oh, I love this. Subconscious limits. Man, I cannot speak. It's Monday. Subconscious limits and assumptions. Glad you were talking about this. Oh, thank you. Yeah, we don't realize. First of all, and I think I mentioned this last week to you guys, I want you to first and foremost realize that initially anything that you think or say, I want you to not believe it. I want you to stop believing everything you think and say. And the reason I say that is because we have this tape that just keeps playing. And it is linked with very emotional things that have been on my shoulders for a long time. Elaine, hope you were able to get some release through that and finding the gratitude and being able to share that. I think it takes incredible courage to be able to share emotions at that level and be able to share things that feel like they've been weighing you down. And a lot of times they are very connected to the stories that we keep telling ourselves, and we don't even realize that we're playing this tape over and over and over again until it shows up where we start hitting those walls or where those upper limits come crashing down on us. Let's see, Terry, what are you saying here? My body excels at physical injury to self-sabotage. Yes, so does mine, especially in the last 6 weeks. 2 root canals, 1 pulled tooth, and hoping spinal injection works so I can avoid surgery. And I keep taking care of things and I am winning. I love that. That just gives me chills and makes my eyes water. Yes, because when you recognize, here's the reason we're having the conversation. It's, again, not to put yourself in a place of judgment, to continue to self-deprecate and be even harder on yourselves. It's not where I want you to say, look at me, here's another thing I can't do right. Now I've got this upper limit. It's to say, ooh, look at me, I have this awareness. And Terry, I think what you just said was so on the point of what I'm making is when you have the awareness around what are your upper limits, what are those triggers and those stories that you're telling yourselves, then you can have that mindfulness and be more purposeful and intentional to say, okay, what do I choose in this moment? Because everything that you have in front of you is a choice, and your emotional state, your beliefs, your stories. And so what I want you to do is anytime one of those triggers shows up or that tape starts to play and you can feel yourself resisting, and we talked about resistance a lot last week, I want you to realize that that's a moment for you to create clarity and awareness around what's showing up for you. And so when that moment happens, ask yourself, okay, do I really believe this? And this is what I mean when I say, don't believe anything you say or think until you can give yourself the pause and the space to say, do I believe this? How is this serving for me? How's that working for me, and do I want to carry that forward? And Terry, I can relate to the back issue, wishing them the best with that. Love that. But I want you to think about that. I want you to think about that you have the power and the responsibility, actually, to stop and ask yourself what's going on. Ask yourself, where's that story? And I think, we've talked about this several times. When you have those moments where the triggers are showing up, you have 3 choices for what you can do inside that trigger. The first space is you can cop out. And I say that pretty directly, but you can cop out and say, I don't want to deal with this trigger. I don't want to go there. I don't want to. And you're putting yourself in a space of not taking responsibility, which puts you in a space of still playing victim. And just know that that is a choice. And it's if you're not ready to deal with that at that time, that is your choice. And so make peace with it. But if you choose to not get into the trigger, it is a choice that you're choosing to cop out. If you choose, though, to get curious about the trigger and ask yourself, where's that coming from? I find that really curious that every time I try to do X, I get this really bad side ache, or my back really starts to flare up, or I feel like I have all this inflammation in my body. It could be a couple of different things. One, what am I eating? Am I coping and doing some kind of emotional eating to cope with whatever that trigger is that's causing some unnecessary inflammation, because maybe I'm overindulging in sugar or carbs or something that's causing that kind of reaction in my body? Or is it the stress which is physiologically manifesting some of those symptoms and some of those things in your body? And so when you get curious about it, you can not only have awareness. Good morning, Alexis. You can have not only awareness around the fact that you are having the trigger and that an upper limit is starting to flare up for you. You then start to have more awareness around where's the trigger actually coming from. And when you get into the root of, and I love, Elaine, that you've talked about that you're getting into some really heavy emotional stuff. It's only when you start to really name the emotion inside of the trigger and the upper limit that you can start to take ownership and start to change how that trigger is affecting you. And Martha, I totally get that. I think there isn't a person alive that doesn't have some form of an imposter syndrome. And so I really like that you just posted that. And, I tell everybody, I think we have this duck syndrome, right? It's interesting how most people, especially because of social media, good morning, Renee, especially with social media and everything that's out there, we have this ability or have this tendency to only look at people's A-track. We're looking at what we see on the surface. So we look at the people that have the $1 million home, and when you get close enough, I know we used to drive around on some places when I lived in Milwaukee, and it's amazing to me how many $1 million homes you'll see, but if you get close enough to the house, there's nothing inside, because it's all for appearance's sake. And so I think about some of the things that, you participate or that you're consuming on social media. And this is why you've got to be really mindful about what you choose to consume, whether it's television, whether it's social media, whether it's the books you read, whether it's the conversations you engage in, because all of that has emotional energy. It all has a vibration. And what happens is if you get sucked into a space that's constantly creating these triggers and you're doing that comparison, space where you're like, well, that person has this and I don't have that, and they're going to find out I'm not this. And so all of that stuff starts to trigger, and we get in that space where we start to self-sabotage, sometimes consciously, but usually it's very unconscious in the fact that we create these things. It's either those physical limitations, it's mental stories that we create, it's the what if or the shoulding we do all over ourselves. So we'll do things like, well, I should do this, I should. And what we don't realize is we just keep feeding that energy that's in that space of kind of that head trash that just keeps cycling over and over again. And so when you can name the emotion, when you can get into it, what happens is, even when we name the emotion, oftentimes we'll say the socially accepted version of the emotion. So we'll say something like, well, I'm pissed. When actually, if we got into the trigger, into where the emotion is being stirred up, we would find that, no, I feel really insecure. I feel like I was just shamed in that moment. I feel like somebody didn't show up for me the way I wanted them to. I feel disappointed. I feel sad. But what happens is, we have created a culture around us that doesn't allow people to say, I feel, and really connect into what that true emotion is. We mask it and we say things that are either socially accepted, or we put on this front, going back to the duck analogy, where we get really good at being poised on from what everything everybody sees. So people walk around and going, wow, she's got it all figured out. You know, she's just a rock star. She doesn't ever have any issues. And what they don't realize is, underneath the water, that person's legs are going a mile a minute, because everybody has that fear of, what if they find out I'm not all of this? What if they find out I'm really not capable? What if they find out I'm not as knowledgeable about the subject as they think? And I think about some of you that are on, that get out there and do your own speaking and do your own ways that you're engaging and helping people shift, whether it be on social media or your blogs or your videos or the things that you're doing, your coaching, or just the way you show up for other people. There's that fear oftentimes that we have that says, oh my God, who am I to say this to them? Who am I to give them this, advice, this feedback, this insight? Who am I to teach? Who am I to put that out there? And that imposter syndrome kicks in, which is absolutely an upper limit, because we'll say things like, well, I'm just this. I'm only allowed to do this much. I can't go bigger because that's selfish of me, or that's me being really, materialistic or arrogant, or whatever the story is that we connect to it. We start to shut ourselves down from wanting more, from doing more, from being more, from playing at a higher level, because we connect something that is a judgment, whether it be our own or somebody else's, and we start that whole space of what if and shoulding, and we just keep dumping that stuff on us downhill. And so this morning, as we get into, really good morning, Shirley, as we really start to think about how you want to prepare yourself for this week. Monday Mindset always is about, how do you get more intentional about showing up as the leader that you are and the leader that you choose to be. And leadership really is a choice, and it's that space to say, this is how I choose to show up, this is how I choose to serve, and this is how I choose to take personal responsibility inside that space. And so right now, I really want you to take that personal responsibility, to tap into that space of courage, to start to look at the underbelly of where some of your what are some of your upper limits. Good morning. What are some of your upper limits, and where are they coming from? Because again, the second space of when you're feeling triggered is that space to get really curious. It's that space to say, wow, I notice this shows up a lot for me. I notice that I create this reaction or resistance or upper limit or self-sabotaging way to cope with whatever's showing up whenever it shows up. And I notice that I have this habit or this pattern that seems to be something that I'm repeating over and over again. Because the third space of the trigger is when you move past the first and the second stage. You get into the third space, that when a trigger shows up, you can stand in a space to go, no, you know what? I'm really clear about what I believe. I'm really convicted in terms of who I am. And that is not even a trigger for me anymore. You recognize that it was a trigger. You recognize that you still can have that initial and then you go, no, I'm good. I'm in a place where I really have done the work. I really feel like I'm confident and clear about who I am and how I'm choosing to show up. And it's like water off a duck's back, where then you just don't participate in anymore. You just let it go. You're like, okay, it's great. I'm not going to participate. Because when you don't participate in that energy, when it's your own energy, it starts to just naturally go away. You just start to let the trigger dissolve, and it just floats away, and you don't have it being something that's so present person and creating that space where you're self-sabotaging. If it's coming from someone else, what happens is they either find someone else to project to, or they change the way they're showing up with you to continue to engage. So you give people those choices as well. So I'm curious, as I'm talking about that, I love some of the comments that are coming in. I love that, Robin. So true. What else is showing up for you? What kind of thoughts do you have about this? This is a big conversation on a Monday morning. And if we're going to get our head clear, if we're going to get our heart clear, if we're going to stand in a space where we can really show up at our highest and best level, it's important that we recognize that even as the first thing Monday morning, we have things that already start to get in our way. We have things that are already shutting us down. And so let's see, what are you saying, Renee? It's great when you are so self-aware that you can identify when someone else's issue, when it's someone else's issue, and you can let it go and walk away. Yes, and I will tell you that more times than not, when someone is projecting something to you, it is never about you. It's about their own beliefs, and it's about whatever they're being triggered on. What happens is we choose to internalize everybody's opinions about our life. Ultimately, you are the only one that gets to decide how you choose to live your life and what's meaningful and important for you. Other people, you can decide what feedback, what advice, what things you want to filter, but that is a choice, because anything that is directed at you is also coming from that person's space as well. Robin, loving the conversation. Sorry, I have to head out for the day. Oh, well, you too. Wonderful. Oh, Robin, I'm so glad you joined this morning. Mwah. Sending you lots of love, my friend, and I look forward to connecting with you soon. For those of you that are still on, continue to share your thoughts. I want to hear what's coming up. Because what we don't realize, and for those of you that have done a life script with me, when we've talked about in the last 2 weeks, we talked about last Tuesday, what our evening reflection and how we honor that, the bookends, right? Your morning intention and your evening reflection. And this is part of that game. This is part of your morning intention to really get into what stories am I playing this morning? I woke up and, for example, I'm a little tired this weekend. We've been, at baseball games and traveling, and I didn't sleep well last night. And it would be really easy to get into a space to let the head trash take over. It would be really easy to get in a space to say, I'm tired. I don't feel like showing up full out. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And again, that's a choice where you can say, okay, how am I feeling? What's showing up, and what are going to be the choices that I make in that space. And so I say this on a Monday morning so that you can really create that self-awareness to start not only your day, but your week from a really high place of clear intention, clarity, focus, and the power of choice, so that you're showing up and serving at your best capacity possible. And so any other thoughts or things, it's probably going to be a little bit shorter today just because, we are going to get on the road here in a minute. But I wanted to make sure I honor the fact that we meet here like this every morning. And so truly appreciate all of you showing up. Tomorrow, I think I already warned you, I will be at the airport. So it could be a little crazy. However, the Facebook Live shows up. There could be all kinds of chaos and noise, and that's okay. We can still manage and show up for each other in that space and still have a meaningful conversation. So I will still be here tomorrow at 7:30. I'll be at Midway Airport, and we'll see what kind of chaos and craziest we have tomorrow. So anything else? How's everybody doing? Great comments today, you guys. Great discussion. Terry, I'm driving a momentum to build team identity and confidence. Yay. And the battle between going big and feeling like I shouldn't make money on teens is active in my brain. Ooh, that's a huge story in Upper Limit. Because you know why? The value they get from me is worth paying for. Absolutely. And you're teaching them that value for themselves as well. I want you to realize that when we have people pay for our services, when we ask people to pay for things that we're putting out there, that's our gift, we're teaching people how to value that for themselves as well. There is such an opportunity to teach people that it's okay to receive, to ask for money, abundance, prosperity, wealth. It is absolutely necessary for us to want to continue to give at the level that we're giving. And so just like the value they get from sports is worth paying for, or private school or counseling, etc., at some point that conversation will go away. But for now, I'm working actively to tell them, to tell the negative stuff to shut up. Oh, I love that, Shuddy. I love that's hilarious. Yes. It is. It's absolutely. It's an opportunity to tell the negative committee to sit down, shut up, and you got this, right? Because if you don't take over from that space, you are not able to give at the capacity that you want to give. The law of reciprocity and the law of receptivity absolutely demands that what we put out has to be able to come back to us in some way, shape, or form. And we were not put here not to succeed and be abundant and prosperous. And the more we create that energy, the more we allow that space to show up for other people. It's like some of you that say, well, I shouldn't want more when there's poor people. Okay, well, you're not helping poor people by being poor. You can't help the poor if you are being poor with them. So the more you allow yourself to open up space to bring in what you're worth for the gifts that you have and value that, the more you're able to give back in other spaces that can make an impact, that can make change. And so exactly that, Terry, when you think about that negative head trash in your mind, and when you're thinking about who am I to, and it's wrong, because we'll say things like that, we qualify it, we judge it. It's wrong for me to take money from teens to help them find their confidence. No, actually, it's absolutely necessary, because you're teaching them those laws as well, so that they grow up as adults that actually value the gifts they have and can put them into service as well, so that they can then show other people to be abundant and prosperous also. And so think about what you're modeling. Oftentimes, especially when children are involved, we say things like, how can I do that? How dare I? I'm being selfish. And I want you to think about, if your child was coming to you saying that, what would be your response? Would you say the same thing? And so be very mindful of what we say to ourselves. Would we counsel someone else in that space? Are we role modeling what we want to, quote, empower our children, or create environments so that they can empower themselves? Because you know how I feel that empowerment is really that space, excuse me, that only we can do for ourselves. Are you modeling that very thing that you want those teenagers, those kids, to know is accessible for them growing up? And so we teach value by asking for people to respond to the value that we bring. And so I want you to really consider that. I want you to consider what you're modeling. I know I had some trouble, and women in particular have problems or have issues a lot of times negotiating salaries, negotiating their fees, because we've had a culture that's told us that that's not right. We should give. Yes, and there's a big and to that. The only way we can give is to receive, and we need to start stepping into a space to receive the value of what we're worth. And that is absolutely an upper limit that gets in a lot of people's ways. And so, such a good point. Teens are worth their parents' investments. Absolutely. And when you teach them that value, when you teach them the value of their own worth, you teach them by the very actions that they need to put in place to make that possible. Lip service only goes so far. It's the action behind the lip service that creates the opportunity, that creates the change. So absolutely, I want you guys to realize that if you're struggling with that, well, I can only ask for this much, I should only do this, that's too much. And I want you to get in a space to say, am I modeling the very thing that I'm trying to engage and teach people? Elaine, unfortunately, many times parents are not wanting to invest. Well, exactly. And part of that comes to their beliefs as well. They think it's frivolous. They think, well, my kid's just going to waste that. They haven't come up with a great way to teach and model a return on investment. So they haven't set expectations. And Terry, this might be something for you actually, as you're thinking about how teens and parents invest, is having a conversation around what they should expect in terms of return for that investment. Because when you can start having that conversation and teaching people what that really means, and a return on investment is not just a money in versus money out game. Return on investment is truly a function of time, money, energy, resources, people, culture, and lifestyle you are creating. And when you can start to, parents as well, and teens can start to engage in a conversation that says, I really want you to invest in me in this way. Here's what my commitment is. And I know we've done some work with that in our masterminds. What is your commitment in terms of how you're going to show up in this agreement, and what is theirs? And Terry, you might want to think about putting together a parent-child agreement and a child agreement where it says, for this investment that I'm putting in to work on my self-worth, my self-confidence, this is how I choose to show up. This is what I'm willing to do. This is the return that I'm looking for. And this is how I'm willing to, the effort I mean, I put that into my one-on-one contracts with clients. What's the effort you're willing to bring to the table? Because if you think, and I know this from an issue I had last week, if you think that it's my job to fix you or change you and it's interesting because I had a former client who was not the right fit for me, who really, when asked, ultimately, do you believe you have full responsibility for growing your business and making change? She said, no, it's my coach's responsibility. Interesting. It says a lot about why she's not doing the things she needs to do. Because when you realize that at the end of the day, you need to put the effort in. Nothing is going to happen to you without putting that effort, that energy. And so I find it interesting. I have a contract that very clearly states for my one-on-one clients that it is not my responsibility to fix it for them. It is my responsibility to guide them, open up access to every tool and strategy possible. And at the end of the day, it is their responsibility to grow their business, to grow themselves. I am not responsible for what they choose to do in that space. And we need that distinction when we talk about upper limits and the stories that we have going on. So let's see, Terry. Yes, people's issues aren't their baggage, and just like at the airport, TSA doesn't want us tampering with or picking up others' baggages. So why would we pick up each other's? Right? And my favorite meme, you know, I quote this a lot: not my circus, not my monkeys. Stop picking up everybody else's stuff and worry about dealing with your own stuff. We got enough of our own stuff to worry about. Yes, good idea. I have a teen adult contract for collaborative journal, but not when joining the community or taking a class. Yes, I would absolutely. And you know, boundaries are important. The more you have, and I love that Brene Brown says this constantly, clarity is kind. Not having clarity is unkind. And so when you have clarity around, here are the expectations for how we both show up. And so Terry, when you talk about a contract, it's a contract for the teen, it's a contract for the parents, and it's a contract for you. So that if they're joining that community, there is a commitment. There is a declaration that says, I am honoring every person that's a party in this space, and I am choosing and committed to showing up in this way. There is power when we hold ourselves accountable, because then it holds you accountable and it creates a space that say, I own that this is an investment that is my opportunity to create a return around. And so, yes, good idea. Oh, we've already got that one. That one just showed up again. So I want you to realize that you are ultimately responsible. And I want you to hear me say this as we're closing out this morning's session. Ultimately, the thing that you are responsible is for what you think, what you believe, what you expect, what you say, and what you ultimately do in that space. You are not responsible for what anybody else chooses to do as a result of that. That includes your children. You are not responsible for what they think and say. You are responsible for coaching and guiding them so that they understand that there are consequences for everything that we think, believe, expect, say, and do. That everything we do is a choice and everything has an outcome, and that we have a responsibility to understand that what we choose does create momentum around a responsibility we have for whatever that outcome is. And consequence is not a bad thing. Consequence is just the outcome. Oh, Anne, good morning. Welcome. Yes, every day we are here at 7:30. And so would love to have you join us. Other people's opinions are none of your business. Amen. I'm going to channel my inner spirit animal, Miss Betty White, and say that someone's opinion of you is none of your damn business. Whether they like you or not is none of your business, and it has nothing to do with you. And so I really want you to realize that if you're being triggered, that's your stuff. That is not somebody else's. That trigger has nothing to do with anything other than the stories and beliefs that you're holding on to. And the only thing that you are responsible for ultimately is what you think, believe, expect, say, and do. And when you take ownership of that, you will start to create and model the very things that allow you to free yourself of those upper limits, allow you to show up and serve more intentionally and purposely, and allow you to play at your highest and best level. And so, as always, I so love all of you joining every morning. Again, tomorrow's going to be a little chaotic, more than likely. Yes. Oh, and we are going to talk so much more about boundaries, Martha. This is just starting to scratch the surface. Yes. Do you love how I referenced Betty White and Brene Brown in the same discussion? Love that. You got to have your spirit animals, right? And your gurus and your people that just, wake you up. And I love both of them. I love them so much. But we're going to talk a lot more about boundaries over time. I'm going to really get into some of the aspects of destroy the noise. and talk about some of the upper limits even more. But I did want to get y'all started on a really positive note this morning. I want you to just really be mindful of what you're messaging in your brain, what you're saying to yourself, and please stop believing everything that you think and say. Validate it before you choose to believe it. And tomorrow I will see you all at the airport. I will be here, even if it's a short call. I think I should have enough time for us to do a full call before they start boarding. And if I need to race off, just know I'm going to give you as much time as I can before I have to get on that plane to head back to Austin tomorrow morning. But I want to wish you all a wonderful and amazing Mindful Monday. Hope this has been helpful. Sending you all heart-to-heart hugs. I love you, and go out there and lead from a space of love with love. I will talk to everybody tomorrow. We'll do a little Tuesday training, and then remember Wednesday is our Wonder Space. We will do some big Imagine If and Dance in the Possibilities. Thursday is going to be a combination of throwdown and thankfulness. So we're going to really stay in a space of throwdown where gratitude is concerned. And then Friday will be another feature moment. And what I might do is actually bring some more from The Big Leap, because that is one of my all-time favorite books. And just think everybody should have that in their library. So anyway, thank you. Sending you love too. And yes, go Cubs. Hopefully we can bring a win to the home opener. So anyway, mwah, I love you all. Sending you heart-to-heart hugs. And I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye.